My ex-best friend took out a $60,000 loan in my name. She said, "You'll be fine." My retaliation left her with nothing. I've known Zola since we were kids growing up in Huntsville, Alabama. She was the kind of person you couldn't help but be drawn to, loud, funny, full of life. She could talk her way into or out of anything, and I admired her for it. We did everything together. People joked that we were like sisters, and for a long time, that's exactly how I felt. I trusted her like family. Looking back, there were always little signs that Zola wasn't as loyal as I thought. She'd brag about sneaking out of stores with things she'd forgot to pay for or how she talked her way into fancy events without an invitation. I brushed it off as her being bold and adventurous, the kind of person who made life exciting. I was the more cautious one, the one who overthinks everything. I guess part of me liked that she brought me out of my shell. When we hit our 20s, Zola's charm turned into something more manipulative. But again, I didn't see it. Or maybe I didn't want to. She had this way of making you feel like you were the boring one if you didn't go along with her plans. Even when she crossed the line, she'd always laugh it off and make it sound like no big deal. "Relax, Rhea," she'd say. "You're too serious." She moved in with me when we were 25. I had just started a steady job, managing the front office at a logistics company. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, and I was proud of that. Zola, on the other hand, was constantly in between jobs or quitting after a month because corporate life wasn't for her. She promised she'd only stay for a couple of months until she got back on her feet. That couple of months turned into nearly a year. At first, I didn't mind. She was my best friend, and I wanted to help her. But she didn't contribute to rent, never cleaned up after herself, and constantly borrowed my clothes and never returned them. I tried to talk to her about it a few times, but she'd just roll her eyes and make me feel like I was overreacting. "You're acting like I'm a stranger," she'd say. "We're friends. What's mine is yours, right?" I let it slide because that's what I always did with Zola. But then one day, everything changed. It started with a phone call from my bank. I was at work, going through my usual morning routine, when my phone buzzed. I ignored it at first, but the same number called again a few minutes later. I finally picked up. "Ms. Merrow, we're calling about your personal loan," the woman on the line said. I froze. "What loan?" She hesitated. "The $60,000 personal loan you took out 3 months ago. Your payment is overdue." My stomach dropped. "I didn't take out a loan," I said. "There has to be some kind of mistake." She told me the loan was in my name, with my social security number, and that I had signed for it. I could barely process what she was saying. I asked her to email me the documents, and when I saw them, my hands started shaking. There it was, my name, my information, and what looked like my signature. Except it wasn't mine. I knew right away who was behind it. Zola. I left work early and drove straight home. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. I didn't even wait to sit down. "Zola, did you take out a loan in my name?" She looked up, startled at first, but then her expression softened into that fake innocence she always pulled when she got caught doing something wrong. "Okay, listen," she started. "I was going to tell you." I didn't let her finish. "You stole my identity. You took out $60,000 in my name, and you didn't think to mention it?" "Calm down, Rhea. It's not a big deal," she said, like she was explaining why she ate the last piece of cake. "I needed the money for a business idea, and I knew you'd never agree to help me. But you've got a good job. You can handle the payments for a while, and I'll pay you back once it takes off." I was stunned. She said it so casually, like she hadn't just dropped a bomb on my life. "You've got to be kidding me," I said. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms. "You're being so dramatic. It's not like I'm going to let you pay for all of it. I'll take care of it. Just give me some time." That was the last straw. I told her to pack her stuff and get out. She didn't argue. She just grabbed a few bags and left without saying another word. It was like she didn't even care that she'd just ruined our friendship, or my entire life. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Debt collectors started calling nonstop. My credit score tanked. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus at work. I called the bank and explained what had happened, but they told me there was nothing they could do. As far as they were concerned, the loan was mine, and I was responsible for paying it back. I tried reaching out to Zola, but she blocked me on everything, her phone, social media, even email. It was like she disappeared overnight. I thought about letting it go, just dealing with the debt and moving on. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Zola had lied to me, stolen from me, and then walked away like it was no big deal. She didn't get to ruin my life and face no consequences. If she wanted to burn our friendship to the ground, I was going to make sure she burned with it. I started gathering evidence. I requested copies of the loan documents from the bank and compared the signature to old birthday cards Zola had given me. It was an exact match. I also found text messages where she joked about using my information for something small. I saved everything. Then I filed a police report. It felt weird, reporting my former best friend to the cops, but I didn't have a choice. This wasn't some small misunderstanding. It was identity theft, plain and simple. While the police started their investigation, I began my own quiet revenge. I reached out to mutual friends and told them the truth. I didn't even have to exaggerate. People were horrified when they heard what Zola had done. Slowly, her social circle started to shrink. I found out she had moved to Nashville, so I kept digging. I learned she was working as a sales rep at a tech company. It was the perfect setup. She had a decent job and a new group of friends who had no idea what kind of person she really was. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Over the next few months, I worked with the police and built my case. It wasn't easy. Zola had always been good at covering her tracks, but she wasn't perfect. The loan documents alone were enough to prove she had forged my signature, and the text sealed the deal. Once the police had everything they needed, they told me they were filing charges for identity theft. I didn't stop there. I wanted her to feel the fallout, just like I had. I reached out to her new employer anonymously, sending them copies of the court documents that showed Zola was under investigation for fraud. I didn't hear back, but a few weeks later, I found out she had been fired. It turns out companies don't want employees who steal their friends' identities. But Zola wasn't the type to lay low. She popped up again, this time trying to start her own business, something about selling luxury skincare on Instagram. I reported her to every consumer protection agency I could think of. Her posts vanished within days. The legal case dragged on, but eventually, Zola was arrested. It was surreal seeing her mugshot online. The girl I used to have sleepovers with was now facing felony charges. I thought she might try to reach out to me, to apologize or explain, but she didn't. She just disappeared into the system. The trial came about a year later. By then, I was in a better place. I had picked up a second job to help with the debt and started working with a credit counselor to rebuild my finances. I wasn't back to where I had been, but I was getting there. Zola, on the other hand, looked like she had hit rock bottom. When she walked into the courtroom, she looked tired, like someone who had run out of tricks. For the first time in our lives, she didn't look confident. She looked scared. The prosecutor laid everything out, how she had stolen my information, forged my signature, and taken out the loan. They showed the texts, the documents, and even some surveillance footage of her at the bank. Zola tried to argue that it was all a misunderstanding, but no one believed her. I sat there, watching as the judge handed down her sentence, 5 years of probation, restitution for the full $60,000 loan, and mandatory community service. She avoided jail time, but her record was now permanently stained. She would never be able to pass a background check again. When it was over, she looked at me. For a second, I thought she might say something. But she just turned and walked away. Even though the court ordered her to pay back the money, I knew Zola wouldn't make it easy. So, I decided to make her life as hard as possible. I followed her every move, legally, of course. I monitored her social media, kept an eye on public records, and reported her every time she tried to skip out on her obligations. At one point, she tried to move out of state without notifying her probation officer. I made sure they found out. She was forced to move back and lost the part-time job she had managed to find. Every time she tried to claw her way back up, I was there, reminding her of what she had done. Zola ended up moving back in with her aunt in Kentucky. She took a job waiting tables at a greasy diner off the highway. It wasn't the glamorous life she used to flaunt, but it was all she could manage. As for me, I'm doing okay. It took a while, but I finally paid off the loan. My credit score isn't perfect, but it's good enough that I was able to buy a small house just outside of Huntsville. I'm still working at the logistics company, but now I'm in a management position. Life isn't flashy, but it's mine, and I've worked hard to rebuild it. People ask me if I regret what I did, if I think I went too far. The answer is no. Zola didn't just steal my money, she stole my trust, my stability, and a year of my life. She deserved every consequence she got. And now, every time I think about her scraping by in that diner, I feel nothing but satisfaction. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: never let someone walk all over you, no matter how close you are. Some bridges are meant to burn, and sometimes, you have to light the match yourself.